Welcome to the solutions for the exam paper that was set last week. Just a quick note on that. So I'm going to be going through the actual exam paper. The questions on the actual Maths Watch assignment are slightly different. So where the differences are is highlighted in red on the questions. So the answers that I'm going through are not going to be the Maths Watch answers, but all the processes and skills to get through each of these questions are identical. This is part one. YouTube only allows me to do 15-minute videos, so we're going to have to only do a few questions at a time in order for us to get through the full paper. Right, question number one. Work out 1/2 multiplied by 5. Right, multiplying a fraction by a number is the same as saying this is 1/2 multiplied by 5/1, because 5 divided by 1 is still 5. When we multiply these fractions, we do the tops first, so 1 times 5 is 5, and bottoms next is 2 times 1 is 2. This is now 5 divided by 2. We can turn this into a mixed number rather than an improper fraction by asking how many 2's we can get out of 5. Well, there are 2 2's in 5. 2 2's is 4, which means there is 1 left over, our remainder of 1, which is going on the top of the fraction, and the bottom of the fraction stays the same. So 1/2 multiplied by 5 is 2 1/2. So just for example, the differences on Maths Watch for this question is that instead of it being 1/2 times by 5, it was 1/2 times by 7. The method is identical. The 7 would be taking the place of the 5, so it would be 1 times 7 and 2 times 1, which will give you 7/2, which will then be 3.5. Question 2. Circle the number that is 5 less than -2. I'm going to think of this on a number line, doing this vertical to think of like temperature. So if we've got 0, it should be there. -2 would be below it, so I put -2 there. And we're going 5 less than -2, which means we're going a further 5 down, which should take us to -7. Question 3. Simplify 3 times a times 3 times a. Numbers first. 3 times 3 is 9. Then we put the letters. A multiplied by a. Well, if you times something by itself, it's squared. So that's a squared. So 9a squared is going to be my answer. Question 4. Which shape is similar to shape X? Well, when you see the word similar, that is talking about an enlargement. An enlargement is where you're changing the size of a shape in every direction. So if you look through these answers, A has only been stretched horizontally to make it wider, but it has not changed how tall it is. B, the lines have been made thicker, but the overall shape has remained the same size, the same width and the same height. Shape C has had everything increased, so the lines are thicker, the shape is wider and the shape is taller. It also looks like the same shape in the same proportions, only bigger. That is going to be my answer. Now on shape D, everything has been enlarged as well, but it's not all to the same scale. These shapes no longer look alike. These arrows are a little bit too long, and therefore that is not an enlargement. Question 5. Work out 20% of 14,000. Well, 14,000 is the total, so that's what we would call 100%. To find 10%, that will be the next step. 10% is where you divide by 10. So if I divide this number by 10, you are in effect moving every single digit one place down. So the 1 ends at where the 4 is, the 4 ends at where the 0 is, and then we'll have 2 zeros to make it 1,400. You can think about it as almost losing a 0, but in reality all the numbers are moving one place down. So 10% is 1,400, and then to find 20% is double that amount, So if we times this amount by 2, we should get that 20% is 2,800. Question 6. Write 0.85 as a fraction in its simplest form. Well, think about place value. We have like tens, units, a decimal point. Then when we have decimals, the first decimal place is tenths, the second decimal place is hundredths, and so on. Thousandths would be next. 0.85 would go there, so that's 8 tenths and 5 hundredths, or you can convert that into 85 hundredths, because that 5 is in the hundredths column, so it's 85 hundredths. That is a fraction which we can now put in its simplest form. We need to figure out what we can divide both of these numbers by. Well, they're both in the 5 times table, so we can divide both of them by 5 to simplify the fraction. Now 85 divided by 5 is 17. You need to be able to do that without a calculator. And 100 divided by 5 is 20. Always make sure you ask yourself whether there is any number that can go into 17 and 20. In this case the answer is no, and therefore that is my answer in its simplest form. Now, speaking of being able to do divisions without a calculator, that's what you're going to need to be able to do for part B. Write 5/8 as a decimal. Well, when you've got a fraction, that line literally means divide. That question is asking you to work out the answer to 5 divided by 8 without a calculator. Okay, so the way we're going to do that, I'm going to use the bus stop method. So I have my bus stop, I'm doing 5 and I'm dividing that by 8. Now, when we are asking ourselves how many 8s we can get out of 5, if I've only got 5 individual items, I can't get any amount of 8, so that's going to be 0. Anything I don't use down here has to carry over to a next number. Now at the moment there is no next number, but I can add a decimal point and I can add as many zeros as I want. If you're not happy with that, think about the amount if I wrote £5 like that, or if I wrote £5 like that. It's still £5. The decimal point and the zeros hasn't changed how big the number is. What this does allow me to do though is take all 5 of these that we didn't use and carry them over onto that 0 to turn it into a 50, and I can start the question again. How many 8s can I get out of 50? Well, 6 8s is 48. If I started with 50 and I've just used 48, that means 2 of them haven't been used, which can go on to the next number. That's now a 20, and I start again. How many 8s can I get out of 20? Well, 2 8s is 16. I had 20, I've used 16, that means there are 4 I haven't used, that's now 40. And when I say how many 8s are in 40, that goes exactly 5 times, no more numbers remaining, so at 0.625 is what 5/8 is as a decimal. Question 7. A rectangular carpet measures 8 meters by 6 meters. Part of the carpet is covered by a square rug of length 2 meters. Show that 1/12 of the carpet is covered by the rug. So we're going to need to work out the areas of the carpet and the area of the rug. So for the carpet, that's the entire room, it's a rectangle. Area of a rectangle is base times height. That's 8 times 6, so the area of the entire carpet is 48 meters squared. For the rug, it's a square of length 2. That means once again it's base times height. The base will be 2, and because it's a square, the height is also 2. So the area of the rug is 4 meters squared. So when I write that as a fraction, the amount covered is 4 meters squared out of a total of 48 meters squared, and that fraction you can now simplify. You can divide both numbers by 4 if you're confident, or you could half it, then half it again. Either way, that fraction will become 1/12, and that is the amount of the carpet that is covered by the rug. Just one small change on the maths watch question. Instead of showing that one fraction of the carpet is covered by the rug, you have to actually work out the fraction. And question 8 is going to be the last one on part 1. Sam, Carl and Eric share 40 sweets. Eric gets the largest share. What is the smallest possible number of sweets that Eric could get? So we need to divide these 40 sweets between Sam, Carl and Eric. Now 40 does not divide by 3 exactly, therefore there's going to be a remainder. So we're doing 40 divided by 3. How many 3s are in 40? Well, 13 3s is 39, which means we've got 1 left over. So Sam, Carl and Eric are each going to be getting 13 sweets. But since Eric is getting the largest share, that 1 extra sweet that is left over is going to go to Eric. So Eric's got the largest amount, so Eric will end up with 14 sweets, and that is the smallest possible number that Eric could get. That's the end of part 1. I will continue the paper in subsequent parts.